morning and welcome to this morning's panel discussion. How do small to medium sized manufacturers leverage Industry 4.0 and Smart Factory? It's well known that a lot of the big tier one companies have started down this journey. They've got the resources and the scale to basically take advantage of it. But how do the smaller companies leverage Industry 4.0? I have a panel to discuss that here today from, I think, a Tier 2 contract manufacturer. Are you Tier 2 or Tier 3, Fareed? Between 2 and 3, okay. So this is Fareed Anani from Computrol. Welcome, Fareed.
Thank you.
From Siemens, we have Jay Garaji. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
And then from the Aegis Corporation, we have Michael Ford. Welcome, Michael. Okay. So thanks for joining us, gentlemen. I'll start with a very obvious question for a small company. Where should they start in trying to go down the smart factory journey? How should they approach it? How did you approach it?
Okay. Well, first of all, Industry 4.0 has been around for a number of years. It's not something new. For a contract manufacturer to be successful regardless of their size, and in order to be competitive, I think they have to take advantage of some elements of Industry 4.0. While it seems like it's a large undertaking, if you try to think of the entire idea holistically of Industry 4.0. But I think if you take small projects and implement them gradually and make incremental but sustained improvements year after year, you will be successful as a small to medium size electronics manufacturer.
Okay. So basically you start with pain points, areas that you need to upgrade.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and reiterating what Fareed said, starting with those areas that are pain points. But we also have to remember Industry 4.0, even though very large, a lot of people are kind of fixated on this idea that it has to always deal with connecting with equipment or connecting with or trying to make sure everything talks to each other, where there's also elements of it around the business processes as well.
Yep.
You know, connecting to supply chain, connecting to the sales and the sales process, connecting to shipping, warehousing, and shipping out, right? So there are areas there that sometimes can be a great point of entry for a small company before they can say, okay, let's get this win, and then leverage that in order to say, okay, let's sustain this change, let's build the internal change management process that needs to happen because there's mindset changes, there's procedural changes, and then they can work into larger projects that actually
so
change.
They don't need to start with the line. They can start by optimizing the supply chain of components coming into the factory, or even storage and towers, or a number of different ways.
Correct. Yeah.
I think the real issues start to happen when people look at Industry 4.0 and expect something to be completely different from what's happened before, because for the last, 10, 15 years, we've all been providing such solutions in manufacturing. We never used to call it Industry 4.0. So what's changed? The problem that people have when they read about stories is that the top tier vendors are identifying so many thousands of connections that they need to make, and the cost of each connection, and it's running up to budgets of millions and millions and millions of dollars. So your average kind of EMS company is going to say, that's outside of my price range. I can't do that. So the real revolution is actually to make available data from the machines and all kinds of other processes without any additional cost.
Right.
So, okay, the early adopters, they're the ones, the pioneers with the arrows in their back. They're the ones that spent millions. Fine, thank you very much. They've done a great job. But for normal companies, there is a way to get that data. You look at the Connected Factory Exchange, you get that data into an IIoT-based MES platform or an existing platform that we have. You can start to utilize that data in ways that have never been done before. But the components of the systems that we have, they've not changed.
Right.
They're the same as they used to be.
Right.
It's simply that they work a whole lot better now because they've got more data in a more timely and detailed fashion, without that overhead of the huge burden of cost and deployment issues that we've had in the past with machine connections.
Right. But, Fareed, as Michael rightly says, it's all about data. But a lot of companies are using inspection systems, but some of them are using them offline. Do they have to really start changing their thinking here? Because they really need to be connected so that we can capture that data to bring it into the backbone and into the MES system and really harness all of that power.
That is a very good point that you brought up. Inspection systems, in particular AOI and SPI, I think they provide a very good segue for smaller companies to begin to take advantage of the Industry 4.0. A lot of people call it revolution. I want to call it actually an industry evolution. As Michael said, have been providing elements of that for many, many years, but nobody called it 4.0.
Right.
The evolution has taken us to 4.0. Mm-hmm. So for companies who have AOI and not fully utilizing the data that the AOI is making available, or they have it offline, it's a go, no go, accept, reject test. My point of view is that's a very good starting point for automating the data collection and trying to leverage that into making incremental improvements in quality and operations.
You could take your offline machines and make them inline, basically so that we're getting we're grabbing the data.
Correct. Even old machines still provide a significant amount of data.
True.
So.
This is an interesting example of the what we are doing is the same. AOI is AOI, nothing's really changed. But the role of AOI has changed in the smart factory because in the older factory model, AOI is there to detect defects. So you have to test the product because you want to make sure your customer is going to get the perfect quality every single time. So it's a filter. It's a way of guaranteeing that. But that's a negative sales proposition. You're having to do something because you're not sure about your preceding processes. The utilization of the data from AOI can be used in another way in a smart factory, in that you are gathering statistical information. This is machine learning, and this is the sharing of data in closed-loop solutions. So people who are adopting the use of this data, the AOI looks like it's doing the same job, but actually instead of detecting defects, it's actually finding the patterns in the data that mean that defects should never happen, because you can adjust the processes to guarantee there's no defects. So that's a completely different value proposition. And we see that, the little AOI guys or the X-ray guys, they are the guys who really own Industry 4.0 to some extent, because they are the ones generating this data.
Right. Yeah, you've got to look at where a lot of these defects emanate from in the process. Let's face it, it's a stencil printer, and it's such an old-fashioned technology, it's ridiculous, and it's almost impossible to digitize it as well. But as you rightly say, we're using now SPIs to identify missing paste or paste volumes and automatically replenish that before it leaves that part of the process. So that's certainly a benefit.
I think to some degree, we as vendors should have responsibility to provide solutions for small, medium-sized businesses to make it easier for them. There's so much equipment out there, and obviously the vendors have their own preference that you buy the new stuff in order to get benefit from some of the innovations that they've done, and rightly so. They've invested in a lot of the innovations. For example, the
so why don't you offer a free audit system?
Sorry?
Why don't you offer a free audit?
Yeah, that's an option. My point being, I think we should be smarter about offering solutions out of the box that are, let's say, easily consumable. Whether it's SaaS platforms that can easily be deployed, so they don't need an army of IT people to manage it, and they can collect this data because, we're in agreement. Data's at kind of the center of this.
Yeah.
But what they do with it requires a lot of extra effort on their side, right? The guys are trying to figure out, okay, now I've done this. How do I benefit from this? What are the other ways that I can benefit from all this data. And I think we could do a better job of saying, and we continue to build, machine language type elements into our platforms in order to try to drive more intelligence to the operators, to the supervisors, to the management. And I think that's where we, as kind of vendors, should share in the responsibility, not just the equipment guys who are saying, okay, we have the responsibility of making sure all the data is out there.
Yeah, I mean, they need maybe some of them they need more help and education, as it were, into what the capabilities are, because the sophistication level is certainly rising exponentially. For some of these smaller companies that are doing high mix, for example, would storage systems be an easy early step in this evolution, as it were, to improve the goods inward and the condition of components and getting them to the line? Do you think these storage towers is a good early step for some of the smaller high mix companies?
I can tell you from personal experience that the short answer to that is definitely yes. In the world of high mix, low volume, the number of setups per day is phenomenal, changeovers on the line. And with the storage towers and the automated component delivery system, you as a manufacturer are able to reduce your changeover time drastically. So not only it means not only it means many changeovers throughout the day, it also means a complete teardown on the line, because what you're building next has nothing in common with what you're building right now.
Right.
So when the machine stops, that's when you don't make money. So the more the machine runs, the more your factory will be profitable. And speaking from personal experience, with storage towers and automated delivery, we have been able to cut our average kitting time from 3 to 4 hours down to under 30 minutes per work order. That is phenomenal.
Yeah, so you've got an hour and a half extra machine uptime, basically, which is significant, very significant.
I've been giving presentations and I talk about high mix and changeovers, and one of my favorite numbers is the kind of overall productivity level of a factory. And I flippantly say it's going to be like 30%, whereas once it was 70%. And guys come up to me afterwards saying, no, you're completely wrong. It's 10%. And it's exactly what you're saying, that you have products coming along which are completely different, you need to change over. Now, what can you do about that? The storage towers is one solution. And in fact, if you look at material cost, the cost of manufacturing overall, materials plays a huge role in that. So lean material management, like the kind of solutions that we have, play into that. But also, the planning has to come into that as well. You have to understand what products work well with other products and how they work on different line scenarios.
Right.
And it's not a case of simulating that far into the future, as we once were able to do, because the situation changes on a daily basis. What you need is to have all of the information to hand, like a digital product model of the products you want to use, the digital model of the line that you want to put the products on, and be able to have the capability to say, look, I want to make this product on that line right now. What are the consequences? I want to make the same product at a different rate on another line configuration. What are the challenges? And then be able to make those decisions on the fly, so that you then create a far more optimized flow of manufacturing, which then utilizes the material towers to give you that extra edge. And you can double or quadruple your productivity of your factory from 10% to 40%. Okay, quadrupling sounds tremendous, but it's only like up to 40%. Right. But that actually gives you 4 times more profit.
Right.
Potentially.
Really.
And it really needs to be managed in this real time, configure to order, make things happen in the optimal way right now.
Yeah, I think using digital twins, Jay, I mean, you're essentially reducing the number of turns you have before you get something into production. You can model it digitally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, to Michael's point, knowing at least the next shift, 2 shifts, 3 shifts, we don't need to look out a month. What is the best sequence on which line to do what in order to minimize the movement of materials, of feeders, of what is the most convenient in which a storage automated storage system can get you something in the most ideal way. These are things that we should supply, and it's part of the Industry 4.0 benefits, right? And I think we're, with most solutions out there, the possibilities there, and these are also nice places where the small and medium-sized companies can really benefit and leverage. Like Michael said, get that 40% uptick, and Fareed said 30. It's immediate benefits, right? Bottom line benefits. It's not some theoretical top line, hey, we'll get to the ROI at some point. No, the machines are running much more, and we're making more money.
Yeah, you're making more with less.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Fareed, you're very typical of a lot of manufacturers in the United States. You go into a lot of these factories and they have a homegrown software system in there that they've developed. And a lot of these companies are very guard it very jealously. It's like their IP. I mean, everybody's pretty much got the same kind of printer, the same kind of pick and place system. So their differentiator is their software. But with standardization coming in, like CFX or any of the other systems that are out there, you're going to get drawn into having to work with these more or integrate with these more. Is that something you're actively doing?
For me personally, I try to refrain as much as possible from homegrown systems, because for a small organization, a homegrown system can actually create risk down the line. Because an organization that focuses on contract manufacturing, software development is not our core competency, and I think that's very true for most companies who manufacture in the United States of our size.
Right.
So that being said, I think the risk is too high to bear, and even though it may look cheaper in the upfront that yes, I can develop something and it will work today, but that effort is not sustained. There is not incremental improvements. There is not new revisions, new improved revisions being released. So I strongly encourage manufacturers to focus on their competencies and seek software solutions from the experts, even if it costs them a little bit more upfront. I think in the long run they will save a lot more.
Right. Okay, I'm going to jump to you on this one, Michael, because I mean, obviously you're at the heart of CFX, but a lot of these companies that are using homegrown systems are able to link into that backbone. Is that correct?
Yeah. If we were to look at an Industry 4.0 implementation, we're going to find that it's not just one provider of a solution. There are going to be many providers. In the past, they were not able to work together, so they used to overlap and contradict. The whole structure of the Connected Factory Exchange means that we can integrate sources of data from all over the factory, including even machines that you've developed yourself. Within 3 hours, you can have those talking CFX if you use the software development kit. And then you can start to see the interoperability. Because, I come from a background where I developed my own software solutions within manufacturing, and I know the pain that you've been talking about. But there is always scope for people to have a standard solution off the shelf, as you said. It's really, really important to save the money. However, you then get to a stage where I need a specific type of report. I need to do something specific. I want to have my IT guys provide that. I don't want to have to go to the big guys who are going to charge me a huge amount of money to develop a custom feature which is never going to get maintained. I would like to have the flexibility to choose the right way in which I implement the solution I need. And so having this interoperability, having this platform that provides that sharing of data and provides that opportunity, I think is great. Because, Fareed, you need to differentiate yourself against your competitors, and you have that internal know-how. That needs to be translated into the digital world and to keep that differentiation. So this environment, smart manufacturing, is a great way to do it, but the change needs to be made.
Okay, Jay, I'm going to give the last question to you, which is basically bringing in all this data-driven business or technology into the factory. It requires a lot of training and retraining of operators. Is that creating a bit of a bottleneck, or is that there's some people are adopted technology. There's other people that are resistant to it.
Right, sure, and I think been in the industry long enough and in services long enough to know that whenever we implement something new, there's a change management process that needs to happen. Education, retraining, new processes, new benefits, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that now have to do things either differently or not do something that they used to do,
Right.
and need to find something else. And I think the key thing here is there's a lot of fear out there that if I automate, what am I going to do with my people, kind of a thing. And I think they're missing the point. I think this is an opportunity for a lot of employers to take people that have a lot of domain expertise and move them in a place where they can give more benefit to the whole organization. And I'll give you an example. For example, in the test area, you've got people that have an incredible amount of knowledge, background, and experience around test programming and what it takes to make it right. And now there's software coming out there that's automating the test process, machine learning algorithms that are saying, here's the solution for you, go.
Right.
But at some point, somebody needs to validate that algorithm. Somebody needs to make sure that it works. Somebody needs to make sure that everything that's in that algorithm can be benefited over and over and over and over and over again. So rather than taking this one guy that's been sitting in a test department doing the day-to-day thing of programming, let's move them out, let's put them and connect them with people that are doing algorithms that are going to sustain them for the long run.
Right.
And that's just one example of a lot of the things we could do to really not lose the domain expertise, because we don't want to do that, but move them in a place where we can retrain, and then everyone benefits. The whole
I think
organization benefits.
there's plenty of opportunity for expanding the scope of existing operators to do within the factory space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't fear it.
No, absolutely not. Fantastic topic, guys. There's a lot we could go into. We just wish we had more time. But if you are interested in this subject, we will be having a 2-day conference next month, March 4th and 5th in San Jose for the eSmart Factory Conference. So you can look that up online, esmartfactory.net. And we'd love to have you along. For the meantime, I'd like to thank my panel, Fareed Anani from Computrol, Jay Garaji from Siemens.
Thank you.
Okay, and Michael Ford from Aegis.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today.